My name is Emily, and I am a physiotherapist. 2 years ago, when I started working at this hospital, something strange and scary happened. Even today, I can't forget it. It was the most unusual experience of my life, and though it's part of my work story, I've never talked about it until now. When I joined, everything was new: the patients, the doctors, and the hospital environment. I thought it would be a normal job where I could focus on learning. But soon I realized there was something unusual about this place. The hospital felt calm during the day, but at night, it became quiet in a way that felt strange. It was the kind of silence that made you feel like something was hiding in the dark. On my first night shift, I didn't pay much attention to it. Most patients were asleep, so I used the time to catch up on my tasks. One night, a new patient arrived in very bad situation. He was in extreme pain, but his symptoms didn't make sense. When I checked him, everything seemed fine on the outside, but he said his bones hurt badly. It was strange. His body looked normal, but his pain kept getting worse. "Doctor, I can't figure out what's wrong. His bones and joints are fine, but something we can't see is causing this," I told the senior doctors. "This case is unusual, Emily. Be careful, doctor," George said, looking worried. I tried to help the patient, but he became more and more restless. Then I noticed something alarming. His arms and legs were cold, and his skin looked dry and lifeless. His eyes showed a deep fear, like he had seen something terrible. Later that night, I went to check on him again. His condition had gotten much worse. He was breathing heavily, and his pulse was strange, irregular, almost like something else was controlling it. Suddenly, his body stiffened and he fainted. I quickly called the nurse, and we moved him to the emergency ward. On the way there, we heard something shocking. His bones were making cracking noises. Then out of nowhere, he let out a strange laugh. It wasn't a normal laugh. It sounded like someone, or something, evil was inside him. "What is happening?" the nurse whispered, terrified. "I don't know," I replied, just as scared. In the emergency room, things got even stranger. His bones kept making cracking sounds, and his lips curled into a creepy smile. When he finally woke up, his eyes had a strange glow, and he started laughing again. "What you've done will affect you now too," he said, looking directly at me. I froze in fear. Then he added, "You touched me. Now you'll suffer like I did." My heart raced, and I didn't know what to say. His condition kept getting worse, and he made strange noises until morning. The other doctors thought he was just mentally unwell, but I felt something else was going on. After a few days, the patient got better and was sent home. But after he left, weird things started happening in the hospital. Patients began complaining about bad dreams and feeling like something was watching them. Their health often got worse at night for no clear reason. One night, during my rounds, I saw that same patient again. He wasn't admitted, but he was standing in a dark corner of the hospital staring at me. His eyes still had that scary glow. As I passed, he whispered, "You'll become like me soon." His words haunted me, and I decided to find out the truth. I started reading old hospital records and found strange cases from the past 20 years. Many patients had unexplained problems, and no doctor could figure out what was wrong. The records hinted that something unseen was affecting them. I realized there was something within the hospital, something unseen, yet powerful enough to alter lives. The patient, the fear, the cracking bones, the unexplainable symptoms, all pointed to the same grim reality. And then, one night, I saw it. It wasn't a person, but a shadow, a presence that haunted the hospital, preying on patients' lives and slowly destroying them. From that night onward, my life was never the same. The mysterious breaths. The hospital room was bathed in dim light. A small bulb above cast a faint glow, creating long, terrible shadows on the walls and beds. The air smelled of medicines and disinfectants, mingled with a faint scent of old leather and metal. My grandfather, who had been admitted earlier that morning due to breathing problems, lay beside me. His breathing was steady, offering me a temporary sense of calm. Around midnight, a strange sound woke me up. It was a rough, labored breathing that echoed through the room's silence. My heart began to race as I strained to locate its source. I looked around the room. On the bed to my left, a patient lay sleeping, his breathing soft and regular. Next to him, a frail woman, likely his attendant, was dozing on a chair. On another bed was a thin, solitary man who appeared to be in a deep sleep. But the strange sound didn't stop. Instead, it grew louder, as if someone was breathing heavily next to me. I looked at my grandfather, but his breathing remained calm and rhythmic. Dismissing it as my imagination, I tried to ignore the sound, but it persisted, harsh and grating, filling the entire room. Curiosity and fear drove me to investigate. I stepped carefully on the cold tiles, my movements slow and deliberate. The room seemed to stretch endlessly, and the shadows seemed to grow, reaching out toward me. The breathing sound grew louder, almost as if it was right in front of me. I turned toward the lone patient again. He lay as still as before, his frail body wrapped in a blanket, and his face was unclear by shadows. Something felt wrong. A chill ran down my spine when I realized his chest wasn't moving. He was absolutely motionless. So where was the sound coming from? Just then, a cold breeze swept through the room, rustling the curtains around the beds. Fear coursed through me as the light above flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a moment. When the light returned, I saw something that froze me in place. The lone patient's face had turned toward me, even though I hadn't seen him move. His eyes, deep and empty, were fixed on me. I gasped, my breath catching in my throat as my heart pounded violently. I stepped back, my heels scraping against the floor, the sound echoing sharply. The breathing sound grew louder, now accompanied by a faint, wet gurgle, as if someone were struggling to breathe through liquid. Panicked, I scanned the room, searching for help, but the ward was eerily silent. The attendant remained fast asleep, oblivious to my terror. I felt trapped in the oppressive stillness of the room. Then I saw it, something so horrifying that it chilled me to my core. At the foot of the bed, where the shadows were darkest, a figure began to emerge. It was tall and thin, with unnaturally long, frail arms. Its head was tilted at an odd angle, as if observing me with mocking curiosity. The figure slowly raised one of its bony fingers, pointing toward my grandfather's bed. My fears surged as the breathing sound grew even louder, mimicking my grandfather's tired breaths, but with a sinister, menacing weight to it. Each breath carried an unspoken threat. Suddenly, the light flickered again, and the room was plunged into darkness once more. I held my breath, waiting for the light to return. When it did, the figure was gone. The room was quiet again, still, and eerily normal. The patients and their attendants remained in place, undisturbed. But something had changed. My grandfather's breathing, once calm and steady, now mirrored the haunting, raspy sound that had terrified me. I rushed to his side, grabbing his hand and calling out to him, but his eyes remained shut. His face was pale and cold. The eerie sound of his breathing continued, resonating through the room like an ominous echo. Terrified, I glanced around the room once more and noticed something chilling on the wall where the shadows were deepest. Scratched into the surface were a few words that made my blood run cold. "They are still here." I stumbled back, sweat trickling down my forehead as I scanned the room, expecting the shadowy figure to reappear. But the room remained silent, save for the dreadful sound of the breaths echoing around me. Who were they? Were they real, or just a figment of my imagination? That question continues to haunt me to this day. Dr. Peter and Maya's secret. Dr. Peter was a highly experienced neurosurgeon, celebrated worldwide for his expertise in brain surgeries. He believed that the brain, despite being incredibly complex and mysterious, had its limits. But one day, he faced a situation that not only tested his knowledge but also challenged everything he believed. Maya was a young girl who came to Dr. Peter complaining of severe headaches and insomnia. Her condition worsened daily, and she often appeared lost, as if her mind was overwhelmed by countless voices. Dr. Peter examined her and sent her for an MRI scan. The MRI showed nothing unusual, yet Maya's state continued to deteriorate. Her physical and mental health declined so rapidly that Dr. Peter decided surgery was the only option. He suspected there might be a hidden tumor in her brain causing the distress. The surgery was scheduled, but what followed was beyond imagination. During the operation, as Dr. Peter carefully examined Maya's brain, he noticed something strange. There was a dark spot inside her brain, resembling a tumor but with no clear structure. What made it more peculiar was a faint light emanating from it, as if it was holding on to sorrowful memories trying to escape. Dr. Peter decided to remove the spot carefully. However, the moment he touched it, a powerful jolt surged through his body. His surgical instrument slipped from his hand, and he instinctively turned to look around. "What was that?" he muttered nervously, sensing an abrupt change in Maya's condition. Her eyes had taken on a dark, unnatural glow, and she began murmuring in a voice that didn't sound like her own. "You don't know. You will regret this. They are here," she said, her voice carrying an eerie depth, as though another entity was speaking through her. Alarmed, Dr. Peter tried to stabilize Maya, but her brain seemed to be journeying into another realm. The scenes before his eyes shifted as if her mind was opening a gateway to a different world. A chilling question arose in his mind. Is this Maya's brain, or something else entirely? Maya's condition spiraled out of control. Dr. Peter halted the operation and tried to bring her back to consciousness. The faint light he had seen earlier now spread, illuminating a mysterious part of her brain, as if hiding a deep secret. Her breathing grew erratic, and she became uncontrollable. Her eyes flickered with strange movements, before she let out a piercing scream as if her body had connected with another dimension. Dr. Peter stood frozen, his eyes wide with fear. He realized this was no ordinary case. Determined to uncover the truth, he delved deeper into Maya's brain. To his astonishment, he discovered a biomagnetic field, an inexplicable force behaving like an unseen entity. One day, during another examination, he witnessed something terrifying. A dark door appeared in Maya's brain, leading to an empty room. Inside the room stood a shadowy figure. When Dr. Peter tried to focus on it, the shadow suddenly emerged from Maya's brain and appeared before his very eyes. "What is this?" Dr. Peter gasped in horror. The shadow wasn't human. It was something otherworldly, and its presence cast a chilling silence over the entire operating room. Maya's condition worsened, and she screamed, "They are here! They're taking me back!" Dr. Peter tried desperately to save her, but a nagging thought lingered in his mind. Was Maya truly ill, or was she something else entirely? Finally, Dr. Peter decided this was beyond his understanding. He stopped the operation and arranged for Maya to be transferred to another facility. As he was leaving the hospital, Maya's voice echoed in his mind one last time. "This is just the beginning. I will return." Dr. Peter walked away, burdened by regret and the haunting realization that this was far from over. It was merely the start of a terrifying new chapter.